Is Susie Walker here. Susie Walker here from Psychologies magazine. I am delighted to be joined by one of our star writers, Lizzie Enfield. Lizzie Enfield is author of a brand new book that's coming out called Finish Your Book: How to Complete Your Half-Written Novel. Lizzie, when I saw that, I got so excited because I've got about 1 million half-written novels in my drawer. Really, really. But you're also a creative writing teacher from Arvon. You teach at many of the most prestigious universities in the country with creative writing. So I'm so excited about this interview because we've got you here for a 15-minute, Lizzie, to talk about how do we finish our book. We have so many readers at Psychologies who are writers, who are creatives, who are novelists, and who want to create a new income stream for themselves. And you're the person that can help us. I was just saying to Lizzie just before the call, I was checking out her website and said, Lizzie, can I hire you as my mentor? And she said yes. So back off, everyone.
It's really interesting that you say that, though, because I mean that was what gave me the idea for the book, is that I think there are a lot of people out there who've started and they've got a lot of the way through. They've written 30,000, they've written 50,000, maybe they've written, to the end of a draft. And that in itself is a great achievement. But I think what is really disheartening for people is when they kind of think, I've done all this work, I've done all this amazing, great work, but somehow they get stuck and they can't quite finish it. And while there's a lot of, how to start and how to develop characters and things, there's nothing really saying, what do you do if you're completely stuck? And you've done all this great work, but you can't quite see it through to the end. So that's, it's interesting you said that, you've got that yourself, and a lot of my journalist colleagues and people that have come on creative writing courses, so they get to this stage and then they're not quite sure how to carry on.
Okay, so take us there. Take us to that point. So imagine that we've got our Psychologies readers listening in, and they do have half a novel and they feel really stuck, and they don't know quite what. Now, are there different flavors of stuck? Because I have different stuck. I've got novels and I'm stuck in different ways with each one. So,
well, there are lots of different flavors of stuck, and obviously there are things like just keeping going, which is obviously simple and straightforward. But I think there are lots of different flavors of stuck, and there's 21 different chapters that addresses some of those slightly different flavors, and there are lots of reasons. But just going back to what you were saying earlier, you said you've got a great idea. So I think the main thing actually that makes people stuck, and this is a generalization, but I think a lot of people, once you've started writing, you do get so engrossed in it, and you're doing it on your own. You're not in a team, so you're not having a team meeting and saying, look at this. And it's quite hard to step back from it and look at it critically and say, where am I going wrong? Why am I stuck? What can I do? So that is always the first thing. And then from that, I'd say there's a myriad of different ways and different reasons why you might be stuck. But one of the things that is quite common is on that journey, people sort of get so enmeshed in the journey of whatever they're doing with their characters that they lose sight of their first, initial really strong idea. And they will go, well, I started out writing this book about this. And this is this thing that, writers always say, and it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but, they always say, well, the characters ran away with me. And you think, well, you're in control of them. Don't let them do that. But obviously they do. You go down different paths. And I think that's what people think. They go, I started writing this novel, but it's sort of gone off in this novel and I'm not really writing what I wanted to do anymore. So sometimes it's a question of getting back to that. Another thing that I think is quite common is that people, a lot of the good stuff tends to come at the beginning. In terms of a writer, you're kind of going, here are the characters, here's my great plot idea. And then you get to the middle, and that is, you want it to be good stuff as well for the reader. But you can't quite see how to do that. And one of the things that my students, this is such a very simple tip, but I say it to people often, is, so a lot of it is giving yourself permission to do what you want. But people very often don't feel they can write out of order. So they start, and they might know how the book ends, but they get stuck in the middle. And then when I say, well, have you written the ending? They'll kind of go, well, no, I can't write the ending yet because I haven't written the middle. I say, you can write any scenes you like. So that is one of my key tips, is just think about your novel, start writing the bits that you can see and don't worry about the bits that you can't see. And the other thing which I think which a lot of people find, is that they lose confidence. There is a chapter in this book on writer's block, but I say, my theory really is there's no such thing as writer's block, because if I had to write an article for you and you said the deadline's on Friday, I would never phone you up and say, I'm sorry, Susie, I can't submit this article, I've got writer's block. It's like something you have to make yourself do. So teachers writing reports, they don't suffer from writer's block. It is peculiarly, a thing that we allude to in association with creative writing. And I think actually what it means is people have just lost confidence and they think it's not any good. And one of the things that I've tried to do in this book is include not just practical tips and suggestions, but a lot of anecdotes from other writers. From writers I know, from writers I've met on sort of classes and at writers' festivals, and people that I've interviewed as a journalist. And one of the things that, I've tried to include is that everybody finds this. Because I sometimes think there's a little bit of a, you can speak at a writers' conference or something, there's a little bit of a loftiness, and then people think, well, I don't have all that, I don't have all those skills. I think everybody can write. Everyone has the skills to write a novel. It's just having the confidence to keep going and finishing it, and to not to sort of lose that critical voice, because this was the point that I'm making, not very succinctly, but I think everyone's first draft is bad. And interestingly, I did a talk at a writers' conference a few years ago, which was about polishing and perfecting a first draft. And I asked a lot of the writers that I knew who were published, have you got a first draft of a novel that I can show the people on this course just a little bit of, so that I can show them the final published, polished novel, and show them how bad first drafts are? And they all kind of went, no, I don't want to do that. In the end, I had to do it myself. I thought I wanted to do it with someone else, but everyone was so like, I don't actually want anyone, which is understandable. But I really wanted to show people, look, these people have all written best-selling novels, and our first drafts were all really bad. So I think, again, that's the thing, that people reach a point where they start thinking, I don't know, it's not any good. I've just read Hilary Mantel and it's not like that. You think, forget that, just finishing a first draft, then you can start to work on it. But if you don't finish it, there's nothing to work on. And like anything, it's the working on it that makes it better.
Yeah, I mean, we interviewed Julia Cameron recently, who wrote The Artist's Way, who I believe changed my life. She was so amazing. And she said, in The Artist's Way, is that we kind of create a film and we go, okay, but it's not Star Wars, so it's rubbish. The first film we ever create, and we try and compare it. And I think it's the same as novel, exactly that.
Well, it's like saying you're making a feature film on your phone and then going, oh, it's not Star Wars. And you think, no, because it was the first draft that you made on your phone. And the same, with a novel, your first draft is not going to be good, so you don't need to worry about it. You just need to do it, and then you can make it better. And I think also that's another thing that holds a lot of people up. They keep going back, trying to make the beginning perfect. And I always say, forget that. Just get the first draft down, because it will change by the time you've reached the end. So go back to it after that.
I think there's something about, what I see with a lot of my friends, and a lot of us are writing novels, is that thing of we want some acknowledgement to say, are we on that? Is it any good? Is it any good? And so we get those first 3 chapters done, and then we do it over. You get your synopsis done, and then you give it to someone, and you're waiting with them to say, it's brilliant, it'll be a bestseller, I'll now publish it, or whatever it is. And they don't. And then you just lose all your confidence. So I know Lucy Atkins, who's been doing our Instagram live novel, brilliant. And she says, you just got to grind it out that first draft, because often you're just getting to know the characters. You learn. And
it will change by the time you get to the end. No, and you're right. A lot of people say that they want. Everybody wants that sort of instant gratification, and people often say, I've written 3 chapters, will someone give me a book deal? And you think, no, they won't, because they want to know how it's going to, and if you don't know that, how do they know whether it's going to end that way? But one thing that I do think is important, because it is such a lonely business, and there is a chapter on this, is that you have some sort of support. And one of the best tips that, and I think, and you really want that support from someone who's embarked on a similar process. So it's no good just asking your friend who reads a lot to be nice about it. One of the things that someone told me when I first started was you need a sort of, and this was one of the most helpful things actually, a writer who's also trying to write a novel, who will give you honest feedback, who doesn't like you that much, so they won't be afraid of offending you. And that's the thing. I think I saw Mark Haddon at a festival once, and he said that his wife was his trusted reader. But I think that's really unusual. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of they ask their partners, and their partners kind of, it's like asking if you look nice in this dress. They have to say, yeah, otherwise their dinner will be given to the dog. So it's that. I think you need that sort of honest, which, as you say, can be very crushing, but also if you ask someone that's embarked on a similar path, they know what they're doing, so their advice can be more constructive, and it's getting feedback that's constructive to help you, rather than just, it's like you say, we all want that. Yes, it's brilliant, but actually that's not constructive. That's, it's good for your ego, but it might not be good for your book. And again, it's that I've included stories about people that have had heartbreaking, when I wrote my first novel, I sent it off to a handful of agents, and the person who became my agent replied, and there was this date by which he said he'd have read it. And so I was and then he said, I'll phone you. So I was waiting, bated breath by the phone. And when he phoned, he he'd lost my phone number. So he emailed first and said, I've read it now. There are longeurs, call me. And I thought, I don't even know what longeurs means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Right. So I looked it up, and it said long, tedious, dull passages, particularly pertaining to prose. And I thought, oh God, I gutted. He obviously doesn't like it. Well, I'll have to steel myself and phone him up. And then when I phoned him, he said, no, I do like it. I'm interested in representing you. But the middle really sags and it needs a lot of cuts. And it was that, that very brutal, just there are longeurs, was actually what I needed to know. And he went, go away, work on the middle, tighten it up, add something extra into it, and then we'll talk again. So it is that kind of, you need a little bit of brutality, but at the same time, it is, you need recognition of that achievement, that you're, if you're regularly writing and you're, that is a great achievement. And I often liken writing a novel to running a marathon. Yeah. And again, everybody starts out sprinting, and I say this as if I run a marathon, I can't run at all. But, you start out sprinting, and then when the finishing line is in sight, you can sprint again. But in the middle, you're just kind of, plodding one foot, and that's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to plod in the middle, but you can go back and, when you do another training run, you'll sort of speed up a bit in the middle.
Yeah. So your best, totally, it's a marathon. I get that. I totally get that analogy. I have run. My minor problem is with that analogy is I ran a marathon and I was running all the time, and now I've never run since. That was it. I just never do that again. So that for me, it's like I've got to find a better way. But
you were able to train and do it, and that's fine. A lot of people only want to write one novel or try even, but I think what a lot of people find is it's hard when they've started and they have invested a lot of time and energy not to just finish. And when I wrote my first novel, my goal was just to finish, and it wasn't really to get published. I thought, that will definitely be the icing on the cake, but even just to finish it felt like, that will be an important achievement. And I think that's what people find hard when they think, I just have to finish it, like that marathon. I just need to finish it.
Yeah. I mean, I finished my marathon. It's a really good. Again, I finished my marathon with the men with the fridges on the back, dressed as rhinos. So I was that slow. I was with people, but I did finish it, and that was really great. And it was so horrific. I thought, I'm never going to do this again. But with writing a novel, let's say you're in it for the long haul, you want to get finished. It's a great book, so you've got some great exercise. What would you say your top 3 tips are for people who are, were stuck? And, from this interview that we're doing now, if you had to tell anyone who was writing a novel, what would you tell them?
I think I would say my top tip, and this is very obvious, is find time to write, regular time. It doesn't have to be every day. It could be all day, every Saturday. But find regular time and do it so that you can finish. Yes. The second one is ignore your inner critic. I think that's that is the greatest. It's that voice on your shoulder saying, this is no good. Hilary Mantel's better. You'll never get published. You've just got to ignore that. And the third thing is, it's like more technical, but to keep stepping back from it. So when I say find regular time to write, that doesn't always have to be writing. That could be thinking time, which is also very important and something that really, really busy people think. And they think, I quite often see people, wandering around, and I think I'm working, but I'm thinking. But step back from it regularly, take time. Don't always sit at your computer and beat yourself up because you're not writing. Take your manuscript away, look at it, read it, ask yourself what's going wrong, and then come back to it and keep asking yourself. So I think that's to encapsulate all my technical tips, that would be the main one, is keep focusing on what your central idea was and asking yourself if you're writing it. And so keep kind of pitching that idea or writing a longer synopsis, and keep stepping back from it and saying, okay, this isn't working, so I'm not going to write. This week I'm not going to write. I'm going to step back from it and I'm going to sort out all of these things. Because I think, there is that, and I've contradicted my first point, which is find regular, write every week. But sometimes, be with your book regularly, all the time. But that doesn't mean writing. And I think that is something that people find really quite difficult to do, because you feel as if you're doing nothing, if you're just staring out of the window. And that's another interesting thing about lockdown. I discovered at the very beginning that Newton, came across gravity when Cambridge was closed because of an outbreak of the plague, and that's why he was sitting thinking. So that is, I think, a lot of the time people get stuck because they have so little time. They sit and they write, and then they aren't able to step back and look at the problems. And there are things out there to help you sort out, specific issues, and people out there. But I think every writer needs to step back and do that themselves instead of just thinking, I must write all the time.
And your book is full of great chat. I mean, I love the elevator speech and the synopsis. And what you said, I've just started. I'm halfway through your book, but it's that thing of getting down the idea, the original idea, and then coming back to it. So I've literally pinned it above my desk with novel, which is really good, because I'm like, oh, what is this? Where am I going with this bit? But I'm like, oh yeah, that might fit in. So I think so the book is full of great, it's very practical and grounded. So I would recommend everybody to buy Lizzie's book, which is Finish Your Book, How to Complete Your Half-Written Novel. Lizzie, thank you so much for joining us. That was really inspiring. I feel really kind of fired up and ready to go, and I am going to, when I finish listening to you, I'm going to book some sessions in with you so I can send some.
I'm just going to finish my half-written novel now as well. You
have, come on, you've got 2, 3, 4 best-selling novels, haven't you? So
I've got 4 novels out, and one sort of out in the sort of on the production line, as it were, and one that I'm just redrafting, and I must suck up my own advice and finish properly.
Always the most difficult, Lizzie. I always find it. But Lizzie, thank you so much for your time today. Lots of love, and I'll speak to you really soon.
Thank you, Susie. Bye bye.
Bye bye.